It is DnS.
And to the bottom right for Team Liquid, he is MaNa. I can't say. I don't know too much, but I like that our recent trend here has been talking like about fashion. We're talking about your jacket during the break.
Yeah.
And how it's definitely not real fur. And it's a bit bewildering as to how people think it is.
Yeah, I get criticized for it once in a while, and I have 3 different fur coats that are, fake fur coats. But yeah, they're from my favorite brand. Their name is Spirit Hoods, and they're pretty great. They give back to 10% to endangered species, and that's part of why I like them. So yeah, it's definitely fake. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, it's a really cool initiative. I just, I was thinking about it. I was listening to you guys, and I was thinking, and I was like, to be honest, I wouldn't even know where to find it. Like, I suppose I'd go to like Macy's or some really old department store and go into
really
honestly, because Macy's has been around for like 50 years, and for a while there it was catering towards, I guess, a very stereotypical like demographic, which was like older women who could afford, like mink stoles and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be like, maybe I could go into that, like the far back, way back out beyond the stuff on the front, beyond the teenage wear, and maybe I'd find something that's legitimate fur. But I honestly would have trouble even knowing where to find it. Because if you go to like a very high, like a pricey place, I feel like they're all, to be honest, like a bit hipster. So they're going to be very gung-ho about like animal rights, and they're not going to have fake fur. So I don't even know where to go for real fur, that is. Like,
yeah, I'm not sure where Cruella de Vil or whatever her name is would go either, because at this point it's just like, I think it would be extremely difficult. I haven't looked into it, but like you were saying, I mean, I think there's been so much awareness raised as far as like animal cruelty and stuff like that the trend is just, real fur is just like, it doesn't play well with anyone, I think.
Actually, you know what? I do know for a fact that my grandma left me one, so that's
nice.
I guess
what animal?
I'm not sure. My mother actually, like, there was one time years ago where we dressed up on an online broadcast, and my mother was like, "Here, you can use this stole that grandma gave you," and I was like, "No, I think I'm okay," because I also don't like real fur. I don't want to promote it in any way, shape, or form, even though I inherited it. So. I'm in an uncomfortable position, but we talked a lot about animals, and PvP is actually underway. Fortunately, nothing super aggressive, so we haven't missed a lot of really important things, but openers going PvP can be often important. Hallucination versus hallucination, similar macro-oriented openers, but a Stargate from MaNa to bring it back to StarCraft.
Yeah, and as a segue, we could definitely say that both of these players are animals, technically. And we have that Oracle completely scouted for DnS, though. So does he need a shield battery perhaps in the main? He's going to double scout it even just to make sure that it wasn't canceled. And so the Oracle will pop up eventually. Either it's way too late to cancel it now if you're MaNa. But how do you react if you're DnS is my question.
Well, I think typically you just react to the Oracle, right? First and foremost, don't let the Oracle get a couple of kills that it's definitely not meant to once it's scouted. But then it becomes this interesting conversation about the follow-ups, because Romanicide is one of those maps that does allow for something other than just a blink opener. Now, blink openers are still good, and it's why we see them 99% of the time, especially in European PvP, which isn't like, as aggressive as Korean PvP still can be. But so DnS goes for blink. MaNa goes for the Oracle into Robo. So he's not going to have as much map control necessarily, but he is going to have a fairly strong army and the ability to defend a fast third, which is where this game is headed. So if MaNa could just get it a little bit faster, that would be nice. Looks like that's going to be not possible, as he does take a pit stop over in Immortals. I do like that DnS goes for such a fast third, though, once he recognizes what the intentions are from MaNa.
Yeah, he completely shut down that starting that opener from MaNa in the Stargate. I mean, that was basically a dead building, right? It made an Oracle, and it obviously has a cost just to make the Stargate itself that did not pay off at all. So wonderful job from DnS, even intercepting the Oracle to put on damage to it before it arrives anywhere near his mineral line. I don't think it's even gotten a tag out of that Oracle. So confidently, he takes the third, knowing that that investment was mostly wasted by MaNa. He will be trailing behind in upgrades just by a little bit, but everything else is going DNS right now, as MaNa actually will find an opening, and that's rather surprising.
This Oracle, especially just one Oracle, really doesn't have higher hopes than this. Okay, 4 probes. All right, I'll let you have that one, but it really shouldn't be getting anything more, and yeah, probably shouldn't have gotten that. DNS just wasn't looking at the right place. So MaNa gets to keep that alive, could recall it, because I do think it is still very valuable scouting information. Stargate openers, even when they don't seem to do a whole lot with the actual things they produce, still scouting, absolutely critical in this matchup, can be very helpful. This one's stuck though, so I don't know how much scouting it's really done. But since they both were thinking about a third Nexus anyways, it's from MaNa's side, they both saw that they weren't going for any early pressure, a lot of warp-ins happening. The openers are just going to, decrease in importance as time goes on, and we talk more about compositions, which again, MaNa has chosen to go for, an old-fashioned composition. We're talking about like Mink Souls. It's old-fashioned, and MaNa apparently is doing that version of Protoss. He's just wearing fur all the time.
Yeah, most definitely, and DNS is kind of playing catch-up in that regard, but he has taken a little bit of an economic lead here with 4 to 5 workers advantage at most points in time. He did have that third established a little bit earlier as well. So economy in his favor, tech a little bit in the favor of MaNa. But this game, and in particular on this map, likely to extend a little bit longer, as Romanticide is very difficult to attack into. But harassment is a different story, as DNS will find some damage here potentially. Can't overstay his welcome. However, as these Immortals show up, he's gonna have to blink out of this natural base, and he will take in 2 Stalkers worth of losses in exchange for a couple of probes. And on the other side, he lost 5 probes. I'm not sure to what.
Couple of adepts.
Oh, nifty.
Yeah, pretty nice. Just a little sneak attack there. MaNa is setting up for, again, a very old-fashioned PvP. So he's gone into Immortal Charge on Archon, and he's going to do the +2 attack, which is, we still expect some +2 pressure. It's a good timing to hit, even if you went into Blink into Charge, which is what DNS is doing. But this has, of course, the 4 Immortals. No Stalkers. DNS, if he was suspicious about whether MaNa had transferred off of, this plan, if he had actually gone into Blink Stalkers with that Twilight Council, he would have confirmed 100% no, that's not the case. There were no Stalkers chasing him down. So he should be expecting this push. And now the question is, can he hold it? So the 4th Nexus will have to be canceled 100% as he does scout that the push is in fact underway. And it's going to have that +2 timing. He's going to need shield batteries. I'm actually a little afraid that he didn't quite think the push would be maybe this fast, because having no shield batteries whatsoever now puts this defense into serious doubt.
Yeah, most definitely. And like you said, this 4th stands no chance in the open against this many Zealots. That's not where you want to be. However, with his own Zealot Warpins, DNS is going to charge at MaNa at the ramp, and MaNa not bringing back his Zealots fast enough. So the Immortals and the Archons are going to get taxed. Beautiful blink from DNS, taking down the Warp Prism as well. And this might have cost MaNa quite a little bit not to retreat with his Zealots from that Nexus to kind of buffer for his army. And DNS with an unexpected defense, even keeping his 4th alive, this should not have happened.
Yeah, I feel like at the very least we can say that, right? I mean, Total Miscall will admit that did not go well at all for MaNa. Shockingly bad, but at the very least, the 4th base was supposed to be either canceled as DNS kind of realizes things are about to get heated, or it gets killed, and neither one of those things happened, and he demolished the actual attack. Now MaNa is in a pretty difficult position. I mean, his economy stayed the same, I guess, for a while, but then I guess at some point his probe loss. His probes did not get built, so he is down by 9, starting to work on that now. But I mean, he's 4 base to 4 base, yes, but he doesn't have Blink. Could he go into Robos for Disruptors? Yeah, but then, Disruptor charge on Archon's very awkward. He just took such a bad fight that I'm still a bit flabbergasted. It's hard to find words. That was not a good fight at all.
Not at all. I mean, all he had to do is be a little bit more decisive on either front. What he did was he split half of his Zealots, or a good chunk of his Zealots in any case, to try and work on the Nexus. Why not just work on the Nexus with everything if that's what you want to go for, and then push up the ramp with everything else, right? But without the Zealot buffer pushing up that ramp, and DNS having the presence of mind to identify that the army of MaNa is split and kind of just charging at it while it's split, takes a wonderful engagement. MaNa, however, with a very good counter offense here. A lot of Zealots are going to be warped into the main of DNS. The Warp Prism, luckily for DNS, does get taken down barely with just 2 Stalkers remaining, and these Zealots in the choke will falter eventually to the Stalker Fire, aided by his own Zealots. So things are looking good for DnS. And yeah, off of a very faulty aggression from MaNa.
Yeah, this is not where MaNa was anticipating his position to be, but I think he's making good use of it. He's got his 4th base up and defended currently. Upgrades are even the upgrades on the way is very evenly matched. MaNa gets to buy a little bit of time with that charge light warp in, but overall, was it really worth all of those Zealots and the Warp Prism? Maybe not. He's still down about 40 supply. He's got chokes on his side, but eventually the numbers here are just going to overwhelm him, and I think that's actually what DnS is thinking as well. Shield Battery Overcharge is going to come into effect, and a couple of extra units could come forward here for MaNa too. An Immortal just got rallied in, and Archon is actually stuck, I think, in the stack defense. But it looks like with the help of just Defender's Advantage in StarCraft, MaNa's going to live.
For now, but I love the respect that DnS is giving the Shield Battery Overcharge, and I think he's just waiting for the next wave. He's saying, I'm gonna wait out the Shield Battery Overcharge. Now it's done. Now he's gonna go back in. He got taxed a little bit on the retreat from those Zealots, but not too much, and still he has enough. So I love this composure from DnS, not to overcommit onto the Shield Battery. We've seen that go poorly so many times, and now with additional forces, I think he has enough, though the Stalkers are not really providing additional attack damage to those Immortals and the Archons, but instead they're aiding on the side and mostly attacking Zealots, less valuable units. Still, DnS seems to have enough will breach, and this should be lights out for MaNa. So yeah, a great victory in game 1 from DnS. I'm not sure if I'm calling it too early. Should I keep talking until he GG's? I mean,
no, I think MaNa is trying to digest this loss. He definitely has. He loses the 4th Nexus. Even if he was able to defend here, it'd still be really, really terrible news. Yeah, there's the GG. DnS takes game 1. As I said, I don't think MaNa at all anticipated the game going that way. I think you called it absolutely perfectly. The fact that MaNa split his army, I mean, worked in the DnS's favor. He both did not have to deal with 100% of the army, and he could keep his Nexus alive because he didn't take enough damage. It's a bit too healthy for those 8 Zealots that are trying to kill it to actually do so. And then that was just such an awkward game from there. A lot of what old-fashioned PvP went into was basically an all-in, like do or die right here with the +2. And if it doesn't work, you're really in a difficult spot. And that's same thing happened, even though DnS wasn't playing the exact same game. He had opened up with Blink, right? He used Blink to a great advantage with the way that he was able to work that engagement. So well done by DnS. MaNa trying to go old school, just a little bit there. Kind of common on MaNa side, sure, but still didn't work out for him.
Yeah, beautiful control, like you were saying, with the Blink as well for DnS during the engagement. His prioritizing was beautiful. A lot of the time, it's good to even just let the Warp Prism live if the warping has happened, but he snipes it as it was warping in, right? As the reinforcements for MaNa were coming in. So at the last possible second, he kind of goes in, snipes it, just good presence of mind, good control. And yeah, a little bit of a slip up for MaNa. Even if he had split his army as he did, because everyone gets overconfident. Everyone thinks, okay, like you're giving up this base for sure. I'm just going to start going up the ramp and whatever. And then he gets surprised. He was still slow to readjust and be like, oh crap, I need these Zealots with my army. They kind of stayed and lingered over the Nexus for a little bit too long. So yeah, a couple of mistakes compounding.
I think one of the things, too, that made MaNa kind of react a bit late was because he was reacting to a different thing that I'll elaborate on as we get into game 2 and do the intros. Top right, up 1, he is DnS.
Bottom left, down 1, it is MaNa. Or Liquid.
So, I think MaNa, he did not expect to be jumped on so quickly, so he did pay attention to the army. He was paying attention to the army. I think that's for sure, but I think his quandary at that point wasn't, do I bring the Zealots over, was, do I use the Warp Prism to micro the Immortals back? Because I feel like I saw that indecision and temptation in MaNa's like Warp Prism, like jiggle almost, that he was like, well, if I try to save the Immortals now, then my Warp Prism could be blinked on. But if I don't save the Immortals, then I lose 2 Immortals that were supposed to be the backbone of my army against a Stalker-based army. So at the end, he does finally pick them up to try and micro, but I think one had already died, a couple more like seriously injured, and his Warp Prism still did end up getting kicked off, because he always knew that was going to be a threat. So I think that's where his focus was on. And then the Zealots were almost like a side thing, because he really was just like, oh shoot, like how do I take this engagement? Because this is not at all how I started off like planned. This was not what I wanted.
That's a very good point. I mean, surprise will sometimes get the best of players. We saw a similar situation unfold in terms of the surprise and like mishandling of the situation from Hearthstone versus Euthermal against those medevacs that kind of showed up out of nowhere. And yeah, I think you're spot on. I hadn't considered that maybe there were other things that he was prioritizing. I still think that pulling back the Zealots was maybe the higher priority, but it's a lot easier to say that in hindsight, of course. So yeah, very good point.
Yeah, just because I remember it mostly because I know MaNa is some guy who's very good at microing, especially when things get desperate. He goes into Super Saiyan mode, but he had a noticeable lack of it. And I was like, why wasn't he pulling back those Immortals? And then I realized, oh, it's because he knew the War Prism would be jumped on. So we saw him pulling them back and microing with the War Prism at the very last engagement rather well, but it still couldn't overcome the supply difference. So we know MaNa was, he knows War Prisms can micro. He didn't forget that for game 1, guys. It's just that there was such that problem that existed when Blink Stalkers are in play. So I don't think we get a similar game to that no matter what, as we do go into other maps outside of our MaNa side. MaNa probably won't be playing any Immortal Charge Lot again. And I think just Blink to Blink and the complexities that can happen with those openers. So in this case, DnS is going to be going for a 1-base Stargate opener into that Nexus.
Yeah, and I love that you point that out too, because the setup for MaNa was perfect for the composition on that map. He was hitting while taking his fourth at DNS's fourth, the most open area on Romanticide. That is where Zealots are going to thrive. And yeah, this map, I mean, the feature is completely different. There's not going to be any such wildly open spaces here to take advantage of that composition. DNS is trying to just scout with his adepts, as it is expected at the highest level that there will be a probe to block any attempts. And MaNa going for the double sentry follow-up, whereas DNS seems to have taken on MaNa's hat of going for the Oracle this time.
Ooh, DNS just went for a 1-base Stargate, but MaNa is not just getting shield batteries at the front, or singular, sorry, one was just a block for the Adept. He did also open with a Robo, and I don't know, maybe this is the build that he wanted to do, but I'm also wondering if DNS has just scared MaNa, basically, and the Robo is the safest thing that a Protoss can get, kind of right, I mean, maybe Stargate's like right behind it.
Ooh. These Adepts will actually get in. Now targeting the sentries will force a couple of force fields, actually. Meanwhile, the Oracle tries to go in, but 2 good Stalkers there in the mineral line of MaNa will deny any further attempts, and actually only 3 probes going down, while the aggression on 2 fronts is deflected from MaNa. So all in all, a profitable engagement, I think, for the poll.
It looks like MaNa was totally prepared for the idea of an Oracle, so maybe this Robo opener is just what he wanted to do. I still can't believe he's going to go into charge from it, but we could see the Twilight Council in a blink at a later time than the protection of the Immortals early. In fact, we sometimes even see a bit of an odd push. A lot of PvP has, ingrained moments of just non-production because you're trying to build structures or build technology. And if you can... that was a weird fight. If you can actually kind of predict where your opponent's in that non-production phase and you do attack them, it can get these wildly successful super one-sided fights that seem to come out of nowhere. And MaNa might be trying to hit something like that. DNS, though, with all the scouting of the Oracles, can anticipate this, can scout it, and try to defend it. And that's why he's building shield batteries at home.
Yeah, and I wonder if these 2 Oracles, the sentries don't want to get too far ahead of those Stalkers. Otherwise, I think the 2 Oracles can kind of engage those and take a favorable engagement at that. So let's see if these extra shield batteries are going to be enough for DNS, who does have Blink. So should he take a very profitable engagement somehow, can chase back, provided that MaNa doesn't use his recall defensively. So let's see what happens. That's a lot of shield batteries. I don't know if it's going to be enough to overpower this force of Immortals and the force fields as well, but the force fields going to be ineffective once the blink is finished. Not yet, however.
Good Phoenix use. Builds one just to lift an Immortal and does successfully target it down. Now after the War Prism, again, just MaNa's Robo pushes turning into disasters.
And there's not much you can do about it. Yeah, and he can chase this. He can kill that Immortal with the blink. I'm not sure that DNS is aware of this possibility, or that MaNa is rather, so he does not go for the save with the recall, and instead the Immortal will get pounced on, not even needing to use the blink as DNS. And now the Stalkers from MaNa are trapped as DnS has chasing capacity here. MaNa getting volleys while he has the vision advantage of that cliff, but DnS now blinking on forward. MaNa once again trying to get some sort of vision advantage by going behind the bushes and holding onto the watchtower, but it's an ephemeral effort as all of his army will falter, and now DnS with a massive advantage at this point in the game.
Huge. He's up in workers, he's up in army, he's got the map control of stalkers and even a little bit of harassment with the oracles. MaNa is going to struggle to even live at this point.
Oh, wow.
The shield battery gets blinked upon. Phoenix again used to lift off the immortal. DnS is playing a spectacular game. Great best of 3 that he's going to win 2-0.
Yeah.
But I got to throw in that MaNa did not play at all how I was expecting.
Yeah, that was beautiful prioritizing by DnS to lift off the immortal again. The one single Phoenix, the MVP without a doubt of this game, and just having the presence of mind and the foresight to make it and to have it work overtime, essentially just picking off 2 immortals that were completely removed from crucial pivotal engagements that where MaNa needed those key pieces to hold on to their life. And now DnS with a massive 30 supply lead. I mean, knocking at the doorstep of MaNa while taking his own third. Gonna pounce one last time. MaNa will GG, well played.